I spoke a short time ago with the Greens Senator and spokesperson on the arts, Sarah Hanson-Young. I began by asking her for her reaction to the Labor policy.
This is a really good start, Kieran. After a decade of our Australian artists and creative workers being effectively sidelined and undermined by previous government policy, it's a good step forward, and it's nice to finally hear a government talking about the contribution and the value that our creative industries bring to not just us as a community and a society, but to the economy as well. And we're going to go through the policy with a fine-tooth comb. I'll look at whether we can refer elements of it to the Senate committee, the Communications Committee, so that we can make sure we understand exactly how this will work. Some of it will require legislation, and that's when the Greens will be in the box seat to go through those elements and to negotiate with the government. But let me say first up, this is a good first step. How it's implemented and whether there's enough money aside for it all is the big question, and I'll be looking and watching very closely to what's in the budget.
One of the areas of the policy that's generated a lot of attention but hasn't yet been locked in is the quota for streaming services to have a quota of Australian content. What's your view on that? Where should that mark be set?
This is a really important part, and it's something that Australia isn't just considering in isolation. Other countries right around the world are putting their quotas in place for local content, forcing big streaming giants like Netflix and Disney and others that if they are generating revenue in each country, that a percentage of that goes back into creating local stories from Australia. And here in this situation, it's quite clear that if we don't put something in place, we're going to lose Australian stories. So Netflix and Disney and others, there should be a 20% quota. So 20% of the revenue that these big streaming giants make in Australia should be put back into the industry here, telling Australian stories, making sure Australian audiences can access it. And above all else, and this is something I'm particularly passionate about, is for children's content. It's so essential that our Aussie kids get to hear their own accents, get to see their own backyards, their own schools, their own streets reflected back at them. Kids are consuming content more than ever before on a variety of devices. It's not like just sitting down in front of the TV. They're consuming so much. We need to make sure that we can protect to ensure that our kids get a good dose of Aussie content.
Now, when it comes to the streaming services, the support and their popularity has grown in a huge way in the last couple of years alone. Are there positive signs from those services that they are willing to make those investments in Australian arts?
Well, some are definitely showing very positive signs. We look at Netflix and their investment last year into Heartbreak High. It was a screaming success. But what we need to make sure is that these industries and these big streaming giants are regulated properly and fit for purpose, just like how we manage things with the free-to-air televisions, or indeed, I'm on Sky talking to you right now, Kieran. Foxtel subscription services in that sense do have quotas. So if Foxtel has to have a quota, then I think it's only fair that Netflix and Disney have to abide by a quota as well.
On a few other issues, The Voice is generating a lot of attention right now. Andrew Clennell reporting this afternoon that Peter Dutton will be attending the working group on Thursday, the referendum working group. So that's a step forward in terms of agreement, or at least some sort of consensus possibility with the coalition. Now, one of your own colleagues, though, Lydia Thorpe, she's outright against The Voice. How can she remain Indigenous spokesperson for the Greens, given she's got a position that's different to what your party holds, because you are backing The Voice?
Well, we support the Uluru Statement and it being implemented in full, and that includes all three elements. That's not just The Voice, it includes treaty and truth. That's what First Nations people put to the rest of us when they gave us such a generous offering from the Statement of the Heart, and they asked us to walk with them in those three elements. And I'm very committed to making sure that that is successful. Look, you know, Lydia Thorpe has been upfront with our party room. You know, she's explained her position. You know, there are diverse and different views on these issues about how is the best way forward to achieve First Nations justice. And I want to be really respectful of that. There are differences. Lydia's put forward her position. We as a party room are yet to discuss and formalise our position in relation to the legislation that would establish a referendum. But we all come to it from a position of supporting the Uluru Statement and wanting to see that implemented in full. We really want to see the Albanese government and the Parliament back those other two elements alongside voice, treaty and truth, because without those two, then we don't really achieve First Nations justice.
But when you say we all back that, that's not 100% right, because Lydia Thorpe clearly doesn't.
Lydia's made her position clear, and I respect that. The rest of the party room, we will discuss the legislation and we will come up with our response to government. But I urge the government to talk with the Greens. We're in good conversations. Let's see how much more we can do collectively to deliver progress on those two other elements. And I think this is such an important moment in time, Kieran. We have an opportunity to get progress on First Nations justice, and I don't think we can waste it. But I want to make sure we actually get a genuine progress, and that's, you know, I think we need to bring people together on this, and that's what I'm focused on. You asked about the you know, Lydia's position. Well, she's been up front, and it's up to the rest of us. We'll make our decision.
Yeah, and is that also in terms of whether she can stay in the job? It's hard to imagine that she could stay as the spokesperson for Indigenous Australians when that's the central issue around it, and she's counter to the view of the rest of you. The portfolios are determined by the leader, so that's a question for Adam Bandt. And I don't want to, you know, I'm not interested in getting into that because I actually think we need a more united voice and a united position than ever before, and that's what I'm pushing for. And I don't, you know, and that's across the board. And I've been extremely disappointed to see some of the racist dog whistling from conservative corners in this country over this whole issue. That is not helpful. People who have wanted to hold back progress on First Nations justice for far too long. I am not interested in allowing space for that racist dog whistling to undermine everything else. I want people to be united. I'm going to work for that, and I know so many of my colleagues are right there doing that as well. Do you welcome the fact that Peter Dutton is being constructive, attending the referendum working group this Thursday, as confirmed by my colleague Andrew Clennell this afternoon?
Look, I think the more that people can hear directly from those at the table and those central to this conversation, the better. So yes, I think that's a positive step forward. You know, I just wish that in the same turn that Mr. Dutton would, you know, not feed the most negative, you know, considerations out there. We don't need more division in this country. We need unity, and we need justice, and we need to make sure that our country moves forward. We are, you know, Australia in 2023. We have so much to be proud of, but we still have so much to learn and so much to help ensure that First Nations people have their rightful place in our country, in our decision making, in their decision making. To ensure that they can make decisions about their own lives, on their own country. That is absolutely fundamental to all of this.
Now, your leader, Adam Bandt, addressing the Smart Energy Council, has said that the biggest sticking point when it comes to the Greens supporting the legislation around the safeguard mechanism is the government's treatment of new coal and gas. Surely the Greens won't again let the perfect be the enemy of the good, as has happened previously on climate policy by your party?
Well, it's, every time there's the climate policy is up for debate in the Parliament, people wring their hands on this and say you just have to accept it. Well, let's be clear about this. The current policy as put forward, the safeguard mechanism policy, allows the expansion of coal and gas, and that means more pollution. How can it be that on one hand we're saying that the government says that this will be used to reduce pollution, while on the other hand it's opening up more pollution over there? And it is a fundamental contradiction, and it needs to be sorted. If we're going to deal with climate change, if we're going to deal with the climate crisis, we have to stop making pollution worse. You can't keep opening up new coal and gas mines and fields, keep upping the level of pollution and think that everything's okay. You can't just kind of offset your way out of this. We have to reduce pollution, not simply make it look like it's going away.